Today, we will be discussing a truly devastating case that you won't want to believe is true, but believe me, it is. It somehow never fails to shock me just how poorly a mother will allow her own child to be treated, but here we are. Be prepared because this case is truly heartbreaking. But before we get into a case that is absolutely going to stress you out, let's talk about one way we can decrease the stress we face in a day, and that is with easy, delicious meals to keep us happy and healthy. That is where HelloFresh comes in. HelloFresh has more options than ever to support your wellness journey. With over 50 dinner options and even more market items, you are sure to find something delicious that will suit any healthy lifestyle. HelloFresh makes cooking easy, giving you so many recipes to choose from with pre-packed fresh ingredients. Everything arrives right to your front door, already pre-portioned for less hassle and more time doing what you love. They say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and HelloFresh couldn't agree more. When you try HelloFresh, you will get free breakfast for life. That's right. When you join HelloFresh, you will get free breakfast for as long as your subscription is active. I'm a huge breakfast lover. I'd actually eat breakfast food for every meal of the day if I could, and sometimes I do because I'm an adult with free will. So for me, the breakfast perk is my absolute favorite part of HelloFresh. But of course, the other best part is that I save time with cooking, spending less time at the grocery store and in the kitchen while still eating full, healthy meals that support my healthy lifestyle. So give HelloFresh a try out for yourself. Click the link in the description box or use my code RachelMar10 to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. There is one breakfast item per box while the subscription is active if you're in the US. Outside the US, the local discount will apply. Thank you again so much to HelloFresh for partnering with me on today's video. With that being said, let's get into today's horrifying case. Kinsley Kinner was born on October 2nd, 2013 in Middletown, Ohio to Rebekah Kinner and Scott Sempt. At some point after Kinsley was born, the relationship between Rebekah and Scott fell apart. From there, Rebekah had main custody of Kinsley, but Scott was still very much involved in her life. It was said that Scott and Kinsley spent as much time together as they could, and that Scott was an amazing father to her. Kinsley was described as a happy little girl whose smile could brighten anyone's day. She was talkative and outgoing, the kind of little girl who, no matter where she went, she always made a new friend. She was a bit of a tomboy. She loved to be outside, riding horses and ATVs. She also absolutely loved dogs, Minnie Mouse, learning sign language, and eating out. She was a little girl with such a big heart who was adored by everyone in her life. According to family members of Rebekah, when she first had Kinsley, she was an incredible mother. They were like two peas in a pod. They did everything together. They would sit on the couch and sing songs together. They would cuddle up every night, and Kinsley would always tell her mommy just how much she loved her. Just before Kinsley turned 2 years old in 2015, her mother, then 23-year-old Rebekah, met 26-year-old Bradley Young through Facebook. The two started messaging, and from there, they quickly grew a romantic connection and started dating. But pretty quickly after their relationship began, according to Rebekah, Bradley insisted on them moving in together. She agreed, though I do believe they had another roommate at the time. I'm not sure how much the roommate was around because he's not really mentioned in much of the reporting. I'm not sure if he moved in with them or if they moved in with him. She might have still had her own place but spent all of her time at Bradley's house. I'm not 100% sure what the living situation was besides knowing that they pretty much lived together, though again, I'm not sure whose apartment they moved into. At first, Rebekah said that Bradley absolutely adored Kinsley. He loved on her, played with her, and showered her in gifts. They worked well as a pair, and Rebekah was infatuated with him. But after about a month into their relationship, little things started happening that, looking back, should have been red flags. The first incident happened when they were at a bonfire with friends. She had gotten up to use the restroom when Bradley came up behind her, put his arm around her neck, and then held a pocket knife up to her stomach. He said, "What would you do if I stabbed you right now?" and started laughing as if it was a joke. Rebekah freaked out and said she didn't think it was funny, so Bradley apologized, saying it was just a joke and to stop being so serious. Then, as time went on, he started exhibiting increasingly controlling behaviors. This started as him taking her car keys away from her, telling her that she couldn't go anywhere unless it was to go to the store to buy cigarettes. He always needed to know exactly what she was doing and who she was with, and if she was out for too long, he would call her to question her about what was taking so long. But through all of this, it never struck Rebekah as controlling. He never did these things in a way that was overtly threatening or angry. He always just sounded so concerned, like he just wanted to protect her. He just wanted her to be safe. But then, in addition to him trying to control Rebekah, he also started taking control over Kinsley. This started out as him not allowing Rebekah to pick out Kinsley's outfits or discipline her. Bradley would tell Rebekah that he always wanted a little girl of his own, so he was so excited to be a part of Kinsley's life. He loved her and wanted to help Rebekah raise her. After this started, though, came the discipline that Bradley started doling out. Once again, just like everything else in these abusive situations, the discipline started small. Once he smacked her lip a little bit if he felt like she was talking back or not listening. Nothing too hard or too violent, nothing that even injured her. It was just to get her attention. But then he started spanking her on the bottom, mouth, and hands. If she cried or acted out, he would pull her diaper down and smack her bare bottom. This was not okay with Rebekah, so according to her, she told Bradley that Kinsley was just a baby. She didn't know right from wrong, so he shouldn't be so hard on her. Bradley responded by saying that he was punishing her the same way his own dad did, and he turned out just fine. It taught him to respect people. Otherwise, she's gonna teach Kinsley that she can just walk all over her. If Kinsley ever woke them up in the middle of the night, he could turn even more violent. Rebekah recalls one night when Kinsley woke up crying in the middle of the night from a nightmare. Bradley got up and went over to her, picked her up, and held her above his head, shaking her back and forth, asking why she was being such a little crybaby. Rebekah described that Kinsley was holding on to his arms, she had her legs straight out, and her head was banging back and forth. This was something that started happening multiple more times after this first instance, but she never did anything about it. Another time, Rebekah found a bump on Kinsley's head, along with little red dots all over her neck after she had been out for the day with Bradley. When she asked him about this, he said that they had gotten into a little fender bender, which caused Kinsley's head to jerk forward in her car seat, but they were both going to be okay. It was no big deal. After that, she went out to the laundromat, leaving Bradley at home with Kinsley. When she got back, she noticed a huge red bump on the side of Kinsley's head near her temple. She asked Bradley about it, and he told her that he was giving her a bath and washing her hair when she freaked out and jumped forward, hitting her head on the faucet in the process. Rebekah said she believed both stories. Then, by Thanksgiving of that year, 2015, Rebekah saw Bradley punch Kinsley in the head with a closed fist. After that first incident, she saw him do the same thing multiple more times. By December 1st, 2015, Bradley and Rebekah were getting ready to have dinner with Rebekah's grandparents, or Kinsley's great-grandparents. Apparently, Bradley was trying to put Kinsley's shoes on, but she wouldn't sit still. So he hit her in the head to get her to comply. All throughout these abusive episodes, Rebekah never did anything to stop it. When she would find a bump, bruise, or injury on Kinsley, she would ask about it, but would never challenge the BS stories that she was being given, even though she witnessed the abuse. She would watch Bradley smack her around, hit her in the head, hit her in the face, hit her in the body. But then when a bruise or bump appeared, she pretended to believe that it was caused by something innocent, like her accidentally hitting her head on the bathtub. I don't think Rebekah actually believed any of the stories she was given, even though she claims she did. When she would go visit with her grandparents and they would ask about some of the bumps and bruises, she always had an excuse. That Kinsley fell from the couch. She bumped her head in the bath. When it came to the fender bender, she told them that she was the one driving because Brad had a suspended license at the time. She came up with these stories to protect him despite knowing what truly was happening. That leads me to believe that she never fell for any of his stories. After suffering from endless abuse from a man that never should have been allowed in their home, Everything came to a tragic head on the morning of December 2nd, 2015. By around 6 a.m. that morning, 911 received a call from Rebekah, who reported that her daughter was coming in and out of consciousness. She said that Kinsley went to bed the prior night but woke up that morning screaming at the top of her lungs. They went to check on her, but by that point, she was already going unconscious and was having trouble breathing. Bradley can be heard yelling and cursing in the background. The dispatcher then starts talking them through CPR, explaining how to continue checking for signs of life. You then hear as she talks directly to Bradley, who begins CPR, continuing until an officer arrived.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
My daughter, she's coming in and out of consciousness, and she's not breathing right now. And
What's your name?
Rebekah Kinner.
Okay, let's try to keep it together. Do you need to get next to her for me, or are you next to her right now?
I'm next to her right now.
Okay. Tell me exactly what happened. Did you find her like this, or?
Yes, she went to bed, and she woke up screaming on the top of her lungs twice, and now we can't get her to wake up.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 2.
She's 2?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so is she conscious right now, or is she actually?
No, she's actually unconscious right now.
Okay. Is she breathing?
On and off.
Okay.
Barely.
Okay. Okay, listen to me. So she's not breathing normally, correct?
No, she's not.
She's taking deep breaths. Slowly, get the fuck here.
Okay, tell him the life squad's on the way, but I want to help you guys do CPR. Do you know how to do CPR?
Yes, we know how to do CPR.
She's breathing on and off. I don't know if you start her.
Okay. Listen, where do you have her at? Is she laying on the ground?
Right now we have her on the kitchen table.
Okay, I want you to go next to her for me, okay?
Okay.
I want her laying on her back flat. Does she have like a sleeper on or something? A nightgown?
She has on sweatpants and a long sleeve shirt.
Okay. Hey, listen, you need to keep it together so we can take care of your baby, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, listen to me. I want you to check her mouth and see if there's any food or vomit in there, okay?
There's not.
Okay, you already checked?
Yeah.
Okay. Place your hand on her forehead and your other hand under her neck and lift her chin up, okay? Tilt her chin. Have you guys already done?
He's doing that now. Her heart's beating, but it's beating really fast. She's just not breathing, and her eyes and they're open.
Okay, listen, we need to keep CPR. If she's not breathing, we have to do CPR for her, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I want somebody to put their ear next to her mouth, and I want to see if there's any breathing, if you can feel or hear any breathing.
She's not right now. He's trying.
Okay, tell him I want him to listen to what I'm saying, okay? I want everything I say, I want you to tell him, okay? Tell him to put his mouth next to her ear and see if he can feel or hear her breathing.
No. She's taking breaths every 10, 15 seconds. Take a big, deep breath.
Okay, so she's breathing just a little, correct?
Yeah, barely. I mean, she's not turning purple or nothing yet, but I can close her eyes and she'll open her right back up. But she's completely unresponsive.
Okay, because of her ineffective breathing, we need to give her some mouth-to-mouth, okay?
Okay.
Okay, listen to exactly what I'm telling you to do because I know you're nervous. We're going to walk through this together, okay? Tilt her head back, pinch her nose, cover her mouth with your mouth, and give her 2 breaths, 1 second each to make sure that her chest rises with every breath, okay?
I did.
Okay, did you feel the air go in and out?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm just trying to listen to what you're telling me to do. I'm freaking out.
Okay, you just stay with me, okay? Listen, you need to do chest compressions. Can you put her on the ground?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, put her on the ground.
Okay, she's on the ground.
Okay, place the heel of your hand between her chest bone, right between her nipples.
All right.
Okay, we're going to push down just 2 inches because of her age, and I want you to do this 30 times and fast, okay?
Okay.
Okay, and do you understand me so far?
Yes.
Okay, keep going, okay? We're going to keep doing this. You're doing great. Keep going, okay? Give her 30 chest compressions.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Is the air going in?
Yeah, she's releasing it back out. I heard her go.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Back to chest compressions. Keep going.
They're here right now, ma'am.
They're there. Let them take over, but don't stop until they take over. I want you to keep going until they actually take over chest compressions, okay?
The officer's here.
Okay. Let him take over, okay?
Yeah, she's being responsive. She ain't breathing on her own yet.
According to the first officers on scene, when they arrived, Rebekah was sitting on the front porch smoking a cigarette. When they entered the home, they found Bradley, who was still giving CPR. They took over as more law enforcement officers continued to arrive. They all went to Kinsley, who was still unconscious, though she was still alive. Just barely, but she was clinging to life as hard as she could. As first responders worked to save Kinsley's life, other officers took Rebekah and Bradley to different areas of the home to question them separately about what happened. At that time, Rebekah explained that the night before, they put Kinsley to bed as they normally did, but she woke up screaming and crying. This wasn't unusual for Kinsley, as she often had nightmares that kept her up at night. When she woke up, Bradley grabbed Kinsley from her room and took her to the living room to watch cartoons. Once Kinsley fell back asleep on the couch, she went back to bed while Bradley stayed in the living room. She said that the next thing she knew, she woke up to see Bradley just standing there with the lights on, holding Kinsley. Her eyes were open at the time, but she wasn't blinking, and she was having trouble breathing. In this first interview with police, she did not bring up any of the abuse Kinsley suffered at Bradley's hands. She mentioned that she had been in a car accident recently. She said that Kinsley fell off her kitchen chair the other day and that she had a bump and scratch on her head after hitting it on the faucet. Bradley's interview was much of the same. He said that he's never harmed Kinsley, but explained various accidents that happened to her over the weeks. Again, saying that she fell off her chair and was in a small car accident. He said that the prior night, he, Rebekah, and Kinsley were all on the couch when she suddenly cried out and started having trouble breathing. It seemed to be completely out of nowhere. He has no idea what caused Kinsley to decline so quickly. But further investigation would later reveal that immediately following their initial interviews, and as Kinsley was being transported to the hospital, Bradley and Rebekah had been texting back and forth. Bradley texted, quote, "They're going to try and make us look like bad parents, babe. Not sure how they got 3 different stories either. Chuck, the roommate, never said anything. This is stupid." Continuing, "I love you and stay strong. We will be with her soon." Rebekah replied, "I know, babe. I love you too." Bradley then said, "Just telling them she was lying with both of us on the couch so they don't try and turn it around on you or me." As this conversation was happening, Kinsley was being rushed to the nearest hospital in a state of cardiopulmonary arrest. Upon her arrival, emergency staff were able to restart her heart and put her on life support. After that, they performed a CT scan on her, but this showed that Kinsley had suffered from some very serious injuries. She had a brain bleed. Due to this, she was transported to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, where they would be able to provide better care. There, more testing was done, and Kinsley continued life support. Any and all measures were taken in a desperate effort to save the little girl's life. Now, as all of that was happening, of course, investigators were being updated with what hospital staff were finding. After seeing the scan from the hospital of Kinsley's severe brain bleed, investigators knew for a fact that this was not caused by an accident. I'll explain more in just a few minutes, but based on where the bleed was and other findings on her body, this absolutely appeared to be intentional. So when Rebekah was taken in for her next interview, officers applied more and more pressure. He said that he knows it wasn't an accident. This wasn't caused by a car crash or a fall off from a chair. He said that she had a brain bleed and was barely hanging on to life. He said that Kinsley is not doing well, so she needs to take care of her baby right now. Still though, she continued to say that she didn't know what happened. Kinsley remained on life support for almost 2 days as doctors worked so hard to save her. But by that point, there wasn't anything else they could do. Her injuries were simply too severe to bring her back. So tragically, by the morning of December 4th, 2015, 2-year-old Kinsley Kinner was pronounced dead at the hospital. After this, based on her injuries and the information they had collected from those interviews, Bradley Young was charged with Kinsley's murder as well as child endangerment. Rebekah Kinner was also charged with involuntary manslaughter, child endangerment, and permitting child abuse. Both Rebekah and Bradley sat in jail awaiting her trial until March of 2016. At that time, Rebekah pleaded guilty to her charges, admitting that she stood by and did absolutely nothing as her boyfriend continuously abused her daughter until she was beaten so badly that she died. In exchange for her guilty plea, she was given a sentence of 11 years behind bars. She also agreed to testify as a witness in Bradley's trial. The trial for Kinsley's murder began in September of 2016. The prosecution argued that Kinsley was loved her entire life by everyone around her, including Rebekah, until she started dating Bradley. It was only once Bradley came into their lives that the abuse started, and the reason Rebekah didn't do anything to stop it was because she was afraid of him. She felt trapped. The prosecution outlined everything I've told you up to this point, the timeline of abuse, and how violent he became towards little Kinsley. As I stated before, Rebekah did testify at trial, giving more insight into how everything progressed and why she didn't do anything to stop it. Rebekah claimed that her poor upbringing played a role in how she chose her relationships and how she cared for her daughter. He stated that she was the sixth of her mother's 8 children. Her parents were never married, and according to her, her mother was a heavy drug and alcohol abuser. Meanwhile, her father was a truck driver, so she only saw him a few times per month. When she did see him, she was always really excited, but her father acted rather indifferent towards her. It felt like she was invisible. She spent most of her childhood at her grandparents' home because her mother didn't want her at home with her. When she did spend time with her mom, she neglected and abused her. She wore dirty clothes to school and always smelled bad. They frequently got lice, and there was never enough food in the home. Of course, being stinky and dirty at school leads to bullying, which was something that Rebekah said she experienced a lot. She had no friends, and everyone thought she was weird because she was so quiet and mostly kept to herself. At one point during her childhood, she said that she was attacked and sexually assaulted by her neighbor, which her grandmother confirms. Obviously, this left lasting trauma, leading her to attending therapy to work through it. There, she was diagnosed with PTSD and an unspecified personality disorder. At the time, she was prescribed 3 different medications to stabilize her mood. Despite all the struggles she faced, she still made it through high school, eventually graduating and starting work as a cashier at a fast food restaurant. From there, she carried a few different jobs, such as a nurse's aide, a mail carrier, and a gas station cashier. Rebekah went on to say that once she started her relationship with Bradley, she initially viewed his controlling behaviors as him just being protective, him being a caring man who just wanted her and Kinsley to be safe. But these controlling behaviors turned to physical abuse. As I described earlier, Rebekah claimed to have witnessed multiple occasions in which Bradley would abuse Kinsley, yet she did nothing. Rebekah explained that Bradley also abused her during that time. There was one time when she was pregnant where he punched her in the back so hard that she experienced blood discharge and was put on bed rest. He would punch her legs, pull her hair, and grab her by the neck and throw her down anytime she questioned him. She said he also had a thing about biting her. He would randomly grab her face or arm and bite her really hard for absolutely no reason. Rebekah said that as all of this was happening, she would always tell herself that things would change or that she was doing things to make him mad, so she was the one who needed to change. At the same time, she also felt trapped. He would tell her that if she ever tried to leave, if she ever tries to hide, he will find her. There's nowhere that she could go where he wouldn't find her. He said that he was trained to kill in the military, so he could find her and make it look like an accident. But with all of that being said, anytime he would abuse or threaten her, he always apologized, told her he loved her, and bought her gifts. She was confused. She knew deep down that she needed to leave, but she also felt trapped. Once again, her poor upbringing gave her a totally warped sense of what it meant to be loved. And even when she did get a bad feeling and knew she needed to escape, she stayed because she was afraid for her own safety. Basically, Bradley was responsible for all of the abuse. Yes, Rebekah stood by and allowed it to happen, which is why she pleaded guilty to her charges. But it was only because she was afraid of him.
Rebekah Kinner was let out of prison in order to testify against her former boyfriend, Bradley Young. She had first said that Young was very affectionate towards her daughter, Kinsley.
At first, he really took to her. He loved on her, bought her things, played with her. He was really great with her at first. He started smacking her hands, smacking her in the mouth, busting her butt.
The prosecutor asked if he had a term for that, and Kinner said, quote, discipline. This is what she said to him.
I told him that he didn't need to be so hard on her. She was just a baby.
And what would he say to you?
This is how my dad disciplined me, and I turned out just fine. She woke up crying, and Brad got up and went over and picked her up and held her above his head and started shaking her back and forth and asked why she was being a crybaby.
She described a pattern of abuse and finished by describing when she finally found Kinsley unresponsive.
I seen that her eyes were open and her breathing was off. I tried patting her hands and her feet and her face, trying to get her to wake up, and when she wouldn't, I called 911.
Other family members testified that they never witnessed Rebekah abusing her daughter. They never saw any bruises or injuries before Bradley came around. Nothing was ever wrong with Kinsley until Brad entered the picture. The prosecution also brought forward the pathologist who performed little Kinsley's autopsy after her death. It was found that she'd suffered bruising to her forehead, cheeks, chin, and right shoulder. She also had a scab on the left side of her head. I want to note that one of the first responders on scene testified to seeing these same bruises on Kinsley when he arrived, so the bruises weren't from CPR or something that happened as life-saving measures were being performed. I also want to note that Rebekah's grandmother took the stand to testify that she saw her on December 1st, the day before Kinsley's death. At that time, she had no noticeable bruises on her body. She had no trouble walking or seeing. She was her normal, happy, bubbly little self. But then, by December 2nd, photos taken of Kinsley show bruises all over her tiny body and face. Basically, this is just saying that her injuries weren't caused by a prior episode like a car accident or a fall. If it were, she likely would have shown symptoms by that point, but she didn't. She only had those bruises and injuries on December 2nd, meaning that whatever caused her death happened after her great-grandmother saw her. The pathologist went on to say that Kinsley suffered a brain bleed to the base of her brain, where the brain meets the spinal cord. The bleeding she suffered was not consistent with a fall or car accident. She also had injuries to her skull, which indicated that she had suffered several blows. It looked like she had been punched in the head and body multiple times. It was also found that she suffered hemorrhaging to her retinas, meaning that Kinsley wouldn't have been able to see after sustaining her injury. According to the pathologist, it appears that Kinsley was hit and shaken very violently before her death. As a result of her injuries, her brainstem swelled to the point that her heart stopped beating. That is what caused her death. It was also said that due to the severity of this injury, she would have died shortly after sustaining it. It could not have happened days ago from some sort of accident. And even if you want to try and argue it was, she wouldn't have been able to see, and her family would have noticed that she was blind in those days. This poor 2-year-old little girl was viciously, brutally beaten to death by Bradley, a 26-year-old man. On the other hand, the defense tried to pin Kinsley's death on her mother, Rebekah. They said that Bradley isn't the abusive one. Brad's defense tried painting Rebekah as an unfit mother. They said that all she fed Kinsley was fruit snacks and cereal and depended on Bradley for money, that she only started dating Bradley for his money so that she didn't have to work. They argued that Rebekah wasn't even concerned with her daughter's well-being when she first went unresponsive. She gave the phone to Brad, who tried saving her life with CPR while she went outside and smoked a cigarette. Rebekah said that it was because she was waiting for the ambulance to arrive, but the defense said that it was because she didn't care. Basically, they tried saying that Rebekah was an unfit mother who didn't care about her daughter's well-being. She was the one to abuse her, and that is what led to her tragic death. As I stated, a lot of what the prosecution had to say came from Rebekah's testimony. But the day after she finished testifying, the defense argued that it appeared like Rebekah was intoxicated. It seemed like she was under the influence of some sort of substance because she was having trouble with basic questions. So the judge actually threw out her testimony, telling the jury to disregard. So now the prosecution was only having to rely on character witnesses, the testimony from first responders and hospital staff, as well as the pathologist who performed the autopsy. After the prosecution and defense presented their sides, they made their closing arguments and the jury was off for deliberations. And even though Rebekah's testimony was thrown out, it seemed that everything else presented resonated with the jury enough to find that Bradley Young is in fact guilty. As a result of his guilty verdict, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 15 years served before he is eligible for release. Of course, no one in Kinsley's family believes that this sentence is long enough. Kinsley's father, Scott, believes that he should have gotten death. He actually thinks that both of them should have. He is absolutely devastated and horrified at his daughter's death and how her own mother just stood by and allowed it all to happen.
I'm Scott Kinsley's dad.
How old are you, young man?
22.
22.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to bring to the court's attention?
I mean, I ain't gonna say nothing too bad. I ain't trying to degrade nobody right now, but me and Becca were together on and off for a while. Becca was a good mom. She tried. She did her best. She tried. Got the occasional dirty milk holder thing. Yeah, the occasional diaper rash, all that, but she still tried. And, she tried to take care of Kinsley. Up until Brad, Becca talked on and off for forever. We talked on and off. I was told the new baby was mine. I was excited about it. Up until she met Brad, something changed. Me and Becca talked all the time. When she met Brad, there was something that changed about Becca. But even though you put yourself in a situation, all I'm asking, man, don't let up on the sentence. I've seen people who do less go to jail for more. I've watched the other states, I've looked up other states do what they do, the death penalty and all that. Do not let up on this sentence just because she put herself in that situation. That's my one thing. You can't stress it enough. That was my baby girl that got taken. The videos, the pictures you can see all over the world, that was my world.
But at the very least, there is a sense of peace knowing that there is justice for Kinsley and the people responsible have had to take accountability. Now, as all of this was happening, when Rebekah was arrested in this case, she was actually pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. The timing of her pregnancy was enough for Scott to think that he could have been the father, and he fought tooth and nail to get custody of the baby boy that he believed was his. But testing came back and found that Scott was not the father. The biological father was actually a friend that Rebekah had gotten together with after Scott, but before Bradley. So that man now has custody of his son. Then another more positive thing that came from this case is that Kinsley's death was not in vain. She actually saved 2 lives after she lost her own. One of them was a little boy, Wyatt, who was also 2 at the time, who was born with a congenital heart defect. Then he was also diagnosed with a pulmonary condition, which left him vulnerable and in need of a lung transplant. At the time of her death, Kinsley's family made the choice for her to be an organ donor, so little Wyatt received her lungs, thus saving his life. Since then, Wyatt seems to be doing great, living his life and growing up as he should. I've seen some more recent updates, and it seems that to this day, Wyatt remains strong and fighting. Of course, Kinsley never should have had to go through the horrific abuse she faced. She never should have lost her life. But the fact that she saved even 1 life is just incredible, and if it had to happen, I'm glad something positive came from it. Kinsley will live on, and she will leave a lasting legacy as the little girl who saved another child's life. It's just incredible. But that is where I'm going to end today's video. I know this was a heartbreaking case and really difficult to hear, but I want to thank you all for listening to Kinsley's story, and I'm glad that I was able to end it on a little bit more of a positive note. But now I want to hear what you all think. Who do you think is truly responsible for her death? Do you think Rebekah truly feared for her safety, or was she just so wrapped up in wanting a relationship that she just let it happen, or she just didn't care about her daughter enough to make it stop? Or do you think she took more of an active role in abusing her child? What do you think of the sentences each of them got? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.